everyone.
Morning.
So great to see so many of you here with us today for OrigiNation Social Issue Talk. We welcome you to use the chat to share your name, your affiliation, and where you're zooming in from today.
Good morning, everyone. Great to have you. Please put your name and your affiliation in the chat so we know who's in the room. Oh, hi, Mary.
Great to see so many SIF friends. Josie.
Morning, folks. Welcome, welcome.
Good morning. Great morning.
Good morning on this gloomy but very warm day. So very exciting. Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. Please feel free to use the chat and put your name. Let me know who's attending.
Madeline, nice to see you, and our friends and our
See all of you guys.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We'll just wait a couple more minutes for folks to join, settle in. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to get started. My name is Tanya Inwald. I'm the Director of Programs at the Social Innovation Forum, and I'm thrilled to be here today to learn more about the importance of empowering youth through arts engagement. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having an exciting session ahead. Because we're all on Zoom together, I'd like to begin with just a couple of technical guidelines. So first, we ask that you please mute your microphones, but we encourage you to use the chat function at any time during the session. We'll also be using closed caption option. So there's a button on the bottom of your screen if you need that, so you can just click on that. And also we'll be using the chat for questions throughout the session and during our Q&A session. So please don't hesitate to jump in and use it with any questions throughout the session. We'll be monitoring the chat to make sure that we'll share your questions with our speakers today. And finally, this session will be recorded and shared with you after the event. And also we will be taking photos during the session, just an FYI. We have an exciting group here today, so thank you so much for joining. Before we get started, I would like to extend just a couple of thank yous to some folks. So first, I would like to thank Jacket Foundation for their support for this track that's focused on advancing arts engagement. And also, I'd like to take a moment and recognize our innovator OrigiNation Cultural Arts Center today. We'll hear from them a little bit later. OrigiNation team continued their everyday work while completing the most intensive part of SIF Accelerator last year, which we know even in a normal year is extremely demanding, and this obviously was not a normal year. So we really appreciate OrigiNation and our whole cohort of 2020 innovators for staying with SIF, working extremely hard during this year. They remain so deeply engaged with us as they actively work to strengthen their capacity to connect and uplift their communities in a time of great need. So we're very grateful for the work of the OrigiNation and the rest of the innovators of our 2020 cohort. And also I'd like to thank our team at SIF for being so nimble and adapting to working remotely, which we all know has not been simple, particularly for an organization that thrives on personal connection. Even though we can all meet in Zoom, definitely not the same as being in the same room. And we actually had to pause this event series of social issue talks back in March of 2020, which is a year ago. And we're really pleased to be back together for our 4th virtual social issue talk today. And of course, very grateful to our speakers today. So we have Shaumba-Yandje Dibinga and David Howse. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to hearing from them in just a few minutes. So before we actually get started with the program, I'd like to share just a couple of things about the Social Innovation Forum for those of you who might be new to our work. So our mission at the Social Innovation Forum is to create positive social change
for breakfast
by engaging leaders, strengthening organizations, and building networks. And as you can see in our model graphic that will show up in the next slide, on the green side, we do this by engaging and informing funders and investors about social issues and also about the most promising solutions to the social issues, helping to create avenues for directing resources most effectively for real impact. And on the purple side of our model graphic, you see that we provide support to leaders of nonprofit organizations, just like OrigiNation, to build capacity so that they can deliver the most effective solutions to social issues. We intentionally make connections and build relationships across diverse communities so people on both sides of that equation can help each other to generate significant social change. We like to think about our work as taking a marketplace approach to social change, where SIF is creating the marketplace and inviting people in with all sorts of skills, resources, connections, expertise, and needs, and helping them to make connections, to leverage their strengths, and to learn from one another. And by being here today with us, all of you are part of our marketplace. So we hope that you learn from our experts here today and consider finding ways to support our nonprofit leaders who are on the ground tackling really important social issues. So now I'd like to move on to the real reason why we're all here. I would like to introduce our speakers today. So first, I'd like to introduce Shaumba-Yandje Dibinga, who is the founding artistic director of OrigiNation Cultural Arts Center.
Great morning, everyone.
Good morning, Shaumba. Great seeing you. Thank you so much for being here. And so Shaumba studied at the Boston Conservatory and received her BA from UMass Boston. She's well versed in the arts and African studies. She has received numerous awards for her work with OrigiNation and in Massachusetts school systems, including the Boston NAACP Image Award, the Philanthropic Initiatives Boston Fellows Award, and the Portraits of Courage Upstanders Award, just to name a few. Shaumba works with various school systems, institutions, and organizations to continue to uplift arts and culture in Massachusetts. In addition to her work at OrigiNation, Shaumba is also the founder of Shape Up with Shaumba and is the author of the children's poetry book, Pride in My Stride. But thanks for being so today with us. I know you're very busy and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Also, I'd like to introduce David Howse, who is our speaker today as well. He's the Vice President of Emerson College and Executive Director of Arts Emerson. David is a recognized speaker and commentator on the arts and social integration, and for over a decade has been a leader in the arts and culture sector. He holds degrees from Bradley University and New England Conservatory of Music and is a graduate of the Partnership, Inc. Next Generation Executive Leadership Program at Harvard University. He remains active with the National Arts Strategies Chief Executive Program, a consortium of 100 of the world's top cultural leaders, which addresses the critical issues that face the arts and culture sector worldwide. David is also the member of the Social Innovation Forum Board. So now please join me in welcoming Shaumba and David. Now pass it.
Oh, thank you, Tanya. Yes, I'm David Howse. I use the pronouns he, him, and his, and I'm calling in from the land of the Massachusetts and Ponkapaw people along the waters of the Neponset, also called Milton, Massachusetts. It's great to be with you all this morning, and a real great pleasure to spend this next hour with you. Shaumba and I have known each other for many, many years. I know we look very young, but we're not as young as we look. Sorry, Shaumba. But we are looking forward to having this topic on empowering youth through arts engagement. So here's how we'll spend the next hour. I'll open up with a bit of a frame for context, and then followed by a conversation, which I'll mostly be asking Shaumba questions, and then we'll leave some time for your questions at the end of the call. We have a lot to cover, so forgive me if it feels like I'm moving us more quickly through the conversation, but I hope you will see this as a prompt to a longer offline conversation that you might want to have with Shaumba and OrigiNations. I know that they would welcome that. So we are going to make the assumption that all of us on this call understand and appreciate the intrinsic values of the arts in our society. The arts challenge us with different points of view, compels us to empathize with others, and it gives us the opportunity to reflect on the human condition. There's evidence that supports the notion that arts participation contributes to the health of a civil society. So today, as I said, we're going to focus our conversation on youth empowerment through the arts. But allow me to say a word about the difference, as I see it, between youth development and youth empowerment. Development and empowerment are not synonymous, but they're also not mutually exclusive. Youth development aims to develop the individual, and the youth empowerment focuses on creating greater community change, which relies on the development of individual capacity, hence their integration. Groups like OrigiNation and other youth empowering organizations have been on the ground and on the front lines working with our youth for a number of years. I want to acknowledge that arts education in the Boston public school system has increased as a result of the efforts of organizations like Advestors, and some of those resources have been allocated to organizations like OrigiNations. But the funding challenges persist for small organizations, especially those led by BIPOC leaders. The topic of equitable funding is an important one, and I'm always struck by the finding from a 2011 report entitled Fusing Arts, Culture, and Social Change that states that of every foundation dollar, 11 cents goes to the arts. More than 5 of those 11 cents goes to arts organizations with budgets of $5 million or more. That represents 2% of all organizations. And 1% of the 11 cents go to arts organizations serving underrepresented communities. And further, less than 0.5 cent goes to arts organizations working for social justice. But you might say, David, that's 10 years ago. We've made such progress. And yes, we have on many fronts, but perhaps not this one. But a 2017 follow-up report titled, Not Just Money, Equitable Issues in Cultural Philanthropy suggests otherwise. In the introduction of that report, there's a bolded statement that reads, and I quote, spoiler alert, despite efforts by many leading foundations, funding overall has gotten less equitable, end quote. So with that happy context, let us dive in. Shaumba, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. I always enjoy your smile. I've never seen you without it, actually. It brings me such life. I want us to kind of get started. OrigiNation has been going for, 27 years now, engaging thousands and thousands of students. I think you mentioned that 90% of your students go on to four-year colleges. You've traveled the world. You've provided jobs for these students. Did you ever imagine 27 years ago that these would be your statistics? I'm just curious on how it all started.
So thank you so much. And absolutely not. I didn't know I would still be here doing this. So OrigiNation became a nonprofit organization, as David said, 27 years ago. We're an organization that empowers young dancers from the age of 2. We create leaders, and we do that through the arts. We lay down the soil, we plant the seed, and we give them everything in our power to help them become the best versions of themselves possible. So I am the proud Congolese American daughter of 2 immigrants from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so my parents came here for a better life for their children. I have a lot of siblings, I have a big family. And so we grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we moved to Roxbury and Mattapan, so we moved a lot. Throughout our childhood, we were bullied a lot. And when I say bullied, I mean everything from, being in Roxbury and Cambridge, having police escorts to school, having rocks thrown at my mom, being jumped, being beaten up, all sorts of things because we were African and because we were smart. We weren't in school to make friends. And that was one thing our parents make sure they instilled in us. You're not here to make friends. You're here to take care of something, right? You're here to get your education and be able to help the next person. And in a conversation I had with my sisters the other day, and someone that was interested in OrigiNation, years ago, when I was younger, there were many times where we didn't have any lights on in the house. We didn't have any heat in the house. We'd stand by the oven to get warm, and we didn't have hot water. And my dad, he passed away this past August. And when we were younger, he would look at us and say, you all are going to change the world. And so my dad, he wasn't, my parents weren't the type of people that you said anything back to. So we're looking with no lights in the house. Okay, we're going to change the world, right? But if you look, we became a nonprofit 27 years ago. We started doing the work before 1994, and we're still here doing the work. And we are changing the world one dancer at a time, one leader at a time. We believed in and were taught that if you give to one person and they then give back to somebody else, that you've done what you were put in this universe to do. And we're doing that. Our impact has been incredible, from Drake, who works for a national airline, who believed so much in what we do that over this last year and a half through this pandemic, he decided to take a step to reach out to the administration at his job and let them know about the racism that was happening with people that were on the airlines, right, flying, and what they were doing to the flight attendants. So he had a conversation with my sisters and I. He sat us down and said, I want to bring this to my job. I need them to change their policies. I need them to look at the regulations. And what did they do? They listened to him. They brought him in to meet the president, the CEO. He had a huge meeting and they changed their policies. They have him training people about how to accept and not accept how you're being treated as a flight attendant. Now, when you get on this airline and you disrespect the flight attendant, you're off the list. You can no longer fly on that airline. And he gives us that. He tells us that because of what I learned at OrigiNation, this is why I was able to accomplish this. From Shakia Scott. Shakia is another one of our young people, where Shakia grew up in OrigiNation Cultural Arts Center. She is an activist, a genius, and one of the not so young people that helped make sure police officers have those body cameras. She and another individual. So our young people are now adults doing incredible things. One just became a doctor. One is an educator at Boston Arts Academy teaching geometry, and she just brought her son 2 weeks ago to audition for one of our companies. So it's like one big circle, and we rarely tap ourselves on the shoulder, pat ourselves on the back, but our young people that are now adults, and even the ones that are still children, will say in a heartbeat that I am because of OrigiNation. It's that Ubuntu principle. I am because we are, and we do it because we love it. I will keep going if you don't cut me off.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off right there, because we're going to actually unpack some of those stories and some of the impact that you're making. But I just want to say that your opening why around why you started this organization, the impact that you're making as an organization that actually has ripple effects beyond. You talk about training dancers, but you're training human beings. I think that's quite powerful in your story. And your father was right. You are changing the world, and I know that he's quite proud of that. There are many organizations who present themselves as youth empowerment through the arts. And, in some of them are heavier on the art and lighter on the empowerment. Some are lighter on the and vice versa. But you've found a really interesting balance between, the rigor of your art. And as you're saying, your youth and your alums have developed a very important voice in the community. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how you actually blend the art, specifically dance, and your youth empowerment work in your studio.
You have to. I believe that every school, every organization, even corporations should have some sort of dance, art, singing, music, something within their four walls, because it really, really helps people develop and breathe and have that sense of freedom. And for us, it's not just about coming into our studio or being in my class at a school and learning the choreography and performing on stage. It's more than that. We do quality dance. We teach quality instruction, but we dive into our young people. We teach the whole child. Everything from, I want to know what your report card looks like. I want to know how your math class is going. What's going on in that ELA class? I want to know what's going on in your house. They come in and have conversations with me where they understand if I think they're going to harm themselves, I have to report back. But they give us all they could possibly give us so that we can help them figure out another way to move through this world we're living in. So we do everything from going to funerals, you know, going to birthday parties, baseball games. I sit in on parent-teacher conferences when a parent or guardian can't go because they have to be at work. And so you have to be well-rounded when you're working with children. You can't just, it cannot just be about that art. It has to be about more than that, because that's what they're looking for. Some of our young people have two-parent homes. They're being raised by a grandmother or grandfather. They're being raised by two moms or two dads. They're in foster care. So we have to make sure, A, we're treating them all the same. So there's not one person that gets better treatment than the other, right? They all know that we love them. We're disciplined, we're strict with them in a lot of ways, but we will turn around and crack jokes. And when we could give hugs, we would give those hugs as much as we possibly can. But we dive in wholeheartedly, you know, from allowing them to understand that their voice is important and powerful, and that they don't have to continue to go to school every day and let someone bully them about their skin. So we give them the tools to go back to school and have those conversations, demand those conversations with the administrators at their school. And that's what some of our 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds have been doing, going back to school and having those conversations, and then coming back to our studio and saying, Mr. Dibinga, guess what I did? And then the other students are like, yes, that's what you're supposed to do. Stand up for yourself and stand up for other people. But that's how the arts and life go hand in hand. It honestly does.
And I love that you continue to center the voice of those youth. You talk about the work that they're doing. So, I mean, it's almost, you know, both the art is, and again, you talk so deeply around the impact. And there's that art form that actually makes it spark. And I love that. I'm just curious, you've talked about some of the alums who've gone off to make a bigger difference in the world. What are the elements of your program that make it so unique and provide the conditions for your students to soar and thrive in the world? Are there like the magic ingredients you've talked about, you having to be there more than just a dance teacher, more than just an empowerment coach, but you're really like a life support system in some ways? What would you say are the elements that are key to your program that allow your students to thrive?
Thank you. So first, I learned these elements from my parents, my siblings. Being African is all about family. I learned them from my mentors, Leslie Butler, Jackie Curry, and Jerry Howland. So I learned that you have to approach things, especially when you're dealing with young people, with love, with a big heart. And for me, that's first, because some of them don't get it, right? And the ones that do get it always want more. So you have to love them with all of your heart. And you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Not everyone can work with young people because it's not easy, right? It's not easy. It's not always about a big smile. Sometimes there are a lot of tears when I'm working with the young ones and I'm working with the college students. There are a lot of tears, especially within this last year. But love, passionate, authenticity. You got to be honest, right? Children can sense a liar so easily. They can sense someone who's not really there for them, right? You have to be honest. Even our little 2-year-olds, you know, they now run up to us trying to give us hugs, and we're like, but they can feel the love. They can feel that honesty. So you have to be honest with them, and we are very honest with them. And sometimes, you know, it's not the nicest thing, right? Because you have to be strict, you have to be disciplined, and part of honesty is letting them know that they did something wrong. That wasn't the right thing to do. How could you have done that differently? And I always say to them, do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to tap dance around the issue? We want you to be honest, Mr. Dibinga. Okay, well, here you go. You have to be honest with them, and you have to teach them about integrity, right? You have to teach them about integrity. You have to be able to do things whether I'm standing in front of you or not. Do the right thing whether I'm there or not. Because at OrigiNation, we have that no, you can snitch if you need to, right? And that means if you're on the train and somebody sees you doing something wrong, or your fellow dancer sees you doing something wrong, they report back. They report back, and then one of us gets on them. But those are the things that really, really allow us to have these amazing relationships with our young people. And they know we're very truthful and we love with our whole heart, but we're very strict too.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a little tough love, but they actually know that at the center of everything is this notion of love and support, and that they can grow from that, which is really, really powerful. I love infusing the word love in any business conversation I'm having, so I'm just going to keep saying it. But I appreciate and feel that and hear that from you. Your programs are open to all youth, but you have a particular interest in a few neighborhoods. Some might call them underserved. I call them opportunity neighborhoods. Can you tell us about those neighborhoods and talk a little bit about why those specific ones?
So our young people come from predominantly Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, some areas in Hyde Park and JP. And we focus on the South End. We focus on those areas because growing up, it was our upbringing was very difficult in the areas that we lived in. We grew up during a tough time of the crack epidemic and the stop and frisk, and it was very difficult. And so we made a promise that we would reach out to young people, to families that were dealing with a lot of the things we were dealing with, not really having enough money to have 3 meals all the time. Sometimes we had to have sugar sandwiches. Yes, 2 pieces of white Wonder Bread with sugar in the middle. And that was our lunch and sometimes our dinner. And so we wanted to reach out to families that needed that little extra help, right? And a lot of them are super, super proud. So, it sometimes takes bringing them into the studio to have a conversation and say, no, we don't need your money right here today. We can figure out how to make this work. My sisters don't like my imaginary scholarship programs, but sometimes we have to do that in order for our young people to be able to come into a place and feel like they're a part of it, feel like they're family. So we're intentional about working with families from these areas because we believe they need it the most.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and being, open to everyone, as you say, but also very clear about, who your services are really aimed at. And I think that makes really, really good sense. And those are communities that have often been undervalued, underrepresented, undersupported in many areas. And so having organizations that are inside the community for the community actually make a lot of good sense. You've alluded to this, but cultural groups whose primary mission is to serve people of color or lower income communities face both financial and organizational challenges. It also means that you're doing more in complex situations, as you've named, and with fewer resources. You're not only building cultural programs and nurturing the youth, but you're also providing social services in some ways, creating safe spaces, and also taking the lead on some of the civic engagement issues of our day. And yet still the funding is not where it needs to be. And clearly financial support is key. And I shared the data earlier that suggested OrigiNations, a culturally specific, BIPOC-led social change kind of organization, might be at the bottom of the funding barrel, right? This in spite of the impressive and impactful work that you continue to do. That said, I know that there's been a lot of new initiatives around increased funding for BIPOC-led organizations across the country and across the city. And I'm wondering if you're experiencing that windfall, and in general, what's been your experience in attracting significant dollars? Take your time.
So we're experiencing a little bit of it. I have to say that over this last year, or, a little over a year, we've been thankful to those foundations and those organizations that didn't have us jump through hoops and rings and would call us and say, okay, we're going to give you this grant for $25,000 because we see that you're doing the work. We see that you are making a way for your young people. We see that you've been doing this for years and you need the help. We appreciate that. We appreciate those emails, and some of those, foundations and families are on here now where they say, oh, we heard about you. Give us a call. We want to reach out to you about some possible funding. And it's not even about filling in a 20-page packet, giving our blood type and social security number to be able to get funds to do something that should be a part of this world, right? This is what we're supposed to do. And we shouldn't have to struggle to be able to do something that helps young people thrive. We shouldn't have to. Someone said to us, well, why don't you get these $100,000 grants? I don't know. Why don't you tell me why are we not getting it, right? We are at the bottom of the barrel. We're 3 Black women that run a small nonprofit organization. We are at the bottom. I was on a panel before where a woman said, it's easy for us to get these grants. No, it's not. When we started OrigiNation for years, the money was coming out of our pockets. We were working all these jobs so that we can allow OrigiNation, our young people, to get the best of the best. It didn't matter. Whatever we had to do, we did it, right? And then for years, I was doing this for free. We were working for free. My sisters, we were working for free because we wanted to make sure our young people could get what they needed to get. But it doesn't make sense that we have to struggle to be able to have someone donate to us. You know what I mean? So that doesn't stop the show, right? That doesn't stop what we do, and it doesn't dumb down anything we do. And what happened was, we had to close our doors like everybody else. For this pandemic, we had to shut down. And so for us, we're like, so how are we gonna do this? Are we gonna just close our doors, fold our hands, and take an L, as the children say? That wasn't gonna happen. We lost well over $400,000, right? But we are still doing the work. But I have to, and I like to be honest, I'm disgusted by the fact that we still have to fight in 2021 for those dollars. It just doesn't make any sense. It's time for people to see what we are doing and to see what other small organizations, that are run by us are doing, and not be afraid to just give and dive in. So I appreciate those people that just give to us because they value what we're doing. They appreciate what we're doing, and they respect what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that level of respect and appreciation. And again, I know you guys have been continuing in spite of the challenges, which again, if you were just an arts organization and can say, okay, maybe we don't need to dance, but because you do so much more than that, your very existence is a lifeline and survival. So for so many people. And I think that's critically important. And the fact that, you've been doing this work for 27 years, in my mind, OrigiNation is like a model organization for so many. And I wonder if you could speak to your influence as an organization, as a cultural leader, both on the city, but if it had even wider, sort of the impact, the influence that you've had as, won't fall down, keep going, sort of, we are in it for the long haul for our kids. Can you talk about what that influence has been more broadly?
Oh, so when I look at the young people that we've been able to work with, I have to say that I can't be more impressed with what they've been doing. We have a young person. Well, she's not young anymore. She's in one of the most prestigious dance companies in the world. And, she's in her 8th or 9th season. And we met with her the other day because she wanted to consult with us about a business she is creating that's utilizing the arts to heal. The arts to heal. And so when we look at her and look at the life that she's had and getting to where she's been, where she is, from living with my sister so that she wouldn't get deported, all of these things, and just watching where she is now, it makes my heart smile, watching, man, you got me, David. Watching our young people over this last year organize protests in the streets of Boston and having leaders come and speak at their protests was mind-blowing. They created signs, they reached out to their networks, they made phone calls, they reached out to newspapers and television stations. But these young people, the 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15-year-olds were making this happen. They were organizing conversations with the police, with the Boston Police Department, to talk about what is happening in this country, what's happening in this city with the police brutality and the murders of Black and brown people. These are our children that are doing that. So when I watch, our young people thrive and soar, and then I hear from them, it's because you all have helped us get here. It's because you all have poured so much into us. That's it. It's you can't ask for more than that. We have a youth empowerment tour where our children they raise money through big sales and team parties, and they each have to raise like $2,000, right? And so we travel. So we take them to places like Senegal, Ghana, Jamaica, Trinidad, and they build networks there. So a lot of them are still communicating with the young people they've served over there and created those soup kitchens over there. And so we've built a relationship with the young people of Trinidad and Jamaica so that we can, cross teach and we can cross deliver and have conversations and just share the love. But our impact has been huge, and I never realized we would be where we are today.
Yeah, well, it's quite impressive, and like I said, in my mind, and I know that Madeline is here as well, and organizations like Zoomix and Raw Arts, there are many organizations that are doing this incredibly important work, and maybe it's because it's arts and it's youth, that it actually doesn't get the visibility, and we're grateful to the funding community that has seen the arts and youth empowerment, and that those funding mechanisms are significant, and the idea of bringing more to the table. Now, we only have a few more minutes before we're going to pivot, and I have two kind of quick questions for you. One is that I know that funding is always a challenge. We're always looking for additional funding to continue to do the life-changing work that you're doing. But how else have you found you need to engage others who are interested in this work? Are there volunteer opportunities, board services, hard skills that you need? All the above, I'm sure, but what's been the most effective way of engaging people who want to give and get involved in some ways?
Outside of funding and more funding, our board, we want to expand our board. OrigiNation is a very unique organization. It's small, it's amazing, and I can't express how much it's just an awesome place to be. So we want to expand our board. This year we have this amazing partnership with Converse. So they gave us a grant out of nowhere. I was like, what? We're working on a digital version of our story, our celebration of the African and African-American experience through the arts. That traces our roots from when we were kings in Africa through when we were enslaved all the way up till now. And Converse is doing so many things with our young people, from organizing workshops about designing sneakers to, how to get careers in that industry. And so we're looking for things such as that. We want to be able to offer workshops to our young people, offer internships to our young people, get people to come in and talk about what they do. And that's what we're looking for. I'm looking for a fairy god person that's going to flash a wand and pay for our next youth empowerment tour so our young people could go for free. So we're looking for all of those things. We love having people come or email us and say, how can we help?
Yeah, well, that is a good way to sort of wrap things up. I will just say that for those of you who want to learn more about OrigiNation, you can visit their website, and there's also a 3 to 4 minute sort of reel that really gives a wonderful overview. Maybe we can pop that into the chat. And Shaumba, because you're just not passionate enough, I just don't understand. We need to actually see more passion from you in this work. But I would like to end here and want to have you dream for a moment. We heard a little bit about the dream, but what would a journalist writing about OrigiNations 5 years from now be saying about the organization? And what would you like that article to be highlighting as your greatest achievement 5 years from now?
I would love to see and hear that our young people not only remembered what we did, but how we made them feel. And that's extremely important. We want people to understand how OrigiNation makes people feel.
Well, very powerful. And, I think that for us on this call, I can speak for myself, but you give me life. Your work gives me life. Your smile, your energy it's infectious. And I wish you and the organization all the best. I'm a big fan of all of you, and the organization. So I know we have a few minutes. I want to make sure we have time for questions from the audience. And because we have such a great group, I know that the questions are going to be overflowing. So if you don't have a question, make up one and we will engage it at this point. So I'll turn it over to you and we'll lean on the Social Innovation Forum staff to sort of feed the questions to us.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. So in an effort to build community online, we're actually going to welcome folks to not only ask questions in the chat, but we may call on you to jump in and unmute and ask your question to Shaumba and David. But I know I received a first question from Cassandra at SIF. Cass, are you with us to ask our first question here?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Shaumba, it's so great to hear your story. And based on your experience building OrigiNation, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur interested in building a multicultural arts organization in their community from the ground up?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say know exactly what you want the focus of your organization to be first. You have to know that. And you have to be passionate about whatever that is, because you want to wake up every morning and be happy about where you're going. And then I would also ask them to do some research and find organizations that are similar to what they want to create and reach out to the people that run it and sit down and have those conversations and shadow in order to make sure they're going to be doing exactly what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
I would just add on to that. It reminds me of a story. When I was in undergrad, I was a double major in music and chemistry, and I thought I was going to be an otolaryngologist, a singing doctor. And so I realized I couldn't do both grad school for music and medical school at the same time. And my mother gave me the advice of follow your heart and the money will follow. And I thought that was the worst advice at the time because it did not solve my problems. But I did choose to follow my heart. And it's the same thing that you're saying, Shaumba. Follow your heart and your passion, and then figure out something that you just cannot not do, right? And then start to build it out that, and then build a community around you that won't let you fail. We do not do this work alone. We live in an ecosystem that supports us, and finding those people who will not let you fail, and embrace them and nurture them and build from there. But starting with the heart, for me, is kind of the guiding force.
Right.
Beautifully said. Sharing that heart as well, Cass. Thank you so much, Shaumba and David. And just want to note, Andres, thank you for raising up in the chat the interest to get those two studies that David referenced at the beginning of our conversation. We can get those and send those out in the follow-up email as well, so folks have that resource. But, as I'm giving folks some time to think about some questions, I'm going to jump in with a question of my own here. So, in thinking about, this kind of remote world we're in hopes that we're going to be back in person soon, would love to hear from you all, if there's any sort of innovative solutions you all think are going to stick in the arts world, or is everyone, just really pumped to be back in person and foregoing all of the Zoom? Would love to hear if anything is gonna be with us, when we're kind of back in person.
Yes, this virtual thing, once we figured out how to do it, we are going to keep moving with it, because it's allowing us to also work with young people internationally. Imagine having, 50 faces from London or 50 young people from Trinidad, all involved in a class in our dance studio and engaging in conversation. So I am hoping that people don't just throw the virtual learning to the side, right? But they figure out another way to reach more people and have more conversations and really spread the arts throughout this country and beyond.
Yeah. And I would say similarly for our work, I know Andres is on the call. I used to be the Boston Children's Chorus at the
I
heart of
know.
youth arts and empowerment, which is how I know Shaumba and Madeline and others on the call when many years ago. And so now at Arts Emerson and looking at how we've had to pivot and learn a lot in this period and looking to continue both the digital platform, we're calling it our seventh venue. Because there are people who, I think this is a fascinating statistic. This was through the LaPlaca Cohen's cultural study, where they were actually trying to figure out, what are the audience's behaviors during this time? What are they looking for when they come back? And people who are engaging in the digital platform, 75% of those people have never walked a foot into one of the theaters. So they've never come to my theater, but they're 75%. And of that 75%, the majority of them are people of color, and a marked high percentage of Black people are actually engaging with the art form online, but not in person. And so for me, that is a huge opportunity to engage and to continue opening that, keeping that channel open for folks. Maybe they never move into the physical space, but the fact that they're having access to the work, to the stories, to the questions is really inspiring to me. And also some of our patrons who have health challenges may not feel comfortable coming back in that space. And so because we believe that arts belong to everybody, making sure that we're providing that that space to do that. So our sort of digital platform will be in conversation with our live performance. But coming back in person, we're looking at late fall and still waiting for a lot of guidelines. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but I've been really encouraged by the resiliency of our arts and culture community, knowing that we were here before the money existed, and we will continue because it's such an integral part of who we are and what we are as a society.
Mm.
Wonderful. Excellent. So thank you so much. And just taking a look at the chat here, we've got a question here from Sol, who is an SIF consultant with us. Sol, so great to have you with us. If you'd like to, you can jump in with a question.
Sol Brown.
And let me take myself off of that Zoom background. Good day, everyone. It's so good to see the SIF family. It's wonderful. And to hear the incredible story of OrigiNation, both in terms of its, development and its growth and its outreach and the impacts that it's having with young people throughout the opportunity neighborhoods of Boston. I really like that. So my question is about, connected to what we were just talking about, the virtual world that we've been in, and that you've been continuing your work with young people during this time. And I know that OrigiNation's program is very rigorous, right? You've described that in terms of the discipline that you require from students, and that is a part of the empowerment work that you're doing to get them to be able to go forward with their lives. So I'm curious to know, how did you get them to train and rehearse virtually to the levels that you demand? Because I know that you're looking to train young artists, not just jumping around the room, let's just say. Okay. Yes. So I'm just curious how that went.
So I have to just, thank SIF, because this experience working with the Social Innovation Forum has been fantastic. From everybody we've met through, from the workshops and the conversations. I have to just say that because that's how we met Sol. Our families. So the parents and guardians of our OrigiNation young people are, and I'm going to say spectacular, because they are. If we didn't have the parents and guardians that we have, we would never be able to make this Zoom work. From them trying to make sure their child has the right space or Wi-Fi, and doesn't get interrupted or is dancing full out. It starts there first. So it's in the home first. And then when we open up that screen, we have to make sure that, except for the 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, that's a different ballgame. We have to make sure they understand you're still in the studio. Just because I'm not in that room right now with you doesn't mean I want to see mediocre. I need to see you at your best every single time. So you need to think about Ms. Dibinga being in that room with you and being right behind you asking for what I need. And it works because a parent they'll send me a message and say, such and such isn't in a full split right now. So I'll call them out on the screen. So it has to be, a give and take, right? And then they start to take it seriously, because in the beginning it was very difficult, and it broke my heart watching our young people try to figure out how to maneuver through this. But then watching them learn it, and they were teaching me, oh, Mr. Dibinga, you have to hit the button in the bottom. And I didn't know, but it's like we learned from them. And so it really, really helped us, continue what we do in the studio and help them become the best versions of themselves, because they did it. They were going full out. And it doesn't change. They still do warm up, they still do boot camp, they still do their pledge and affirmation at the end of the rehearsals and classes. It's very important. So we make sure we still do the same thing on Zoom that we do within the studio.
So thank you so much for that question, and thanks for coming on screen. It's so good to see you. And Shaumba, it's so wonderful to hear how your students have engaged, online as well. It's great. So I'm going to give us a few more minutes to have some questions come in, embracing the quiet as well. All right, looks like there's a question that came in here from Kim.
Great work, Shaumba. Really nice to see your smile and your energy.
Thank you.
So my question is, are you able to remain connected with the young people after they leave your program, to provide them sort of ongoing, support, connect them with each other, any kind of sort of alumni networking, etc.?
Yes, thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to see you on here too. Actually, our alumni, our rock stars, they asked for the login for our website. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, go check out the website. Lord, they restructured our entire website. They've been working with us on our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter. They're recruiting people for our programming. They're coming up with different opportunities for OrigiNation. They're making donations to OrigiNation. So our alumni network it's phenomenal. And I could get on a call right now, on a Zoom right now, with 50 of them, because I know where they are. I know what they're doing. Some of them are now sending their young people to OrigiNation for class, their babies, their 2, 3, 4-year-olds and 8-year-olds, so I'm very, very connected with our young people. Some of our college students over this past year had to switch to virtual and had to stay in Boston. And so we open our doors. Some of them now have the key. They go into our studio to do their dance classes, or to have their physics classes, or to just have conversations. We have big group conversations with our college students that are here in Boston, just so we could hear about the challenges they're having and give them tools to be able to continue to move through this. And so we're very, very involved in our alumni. We have to be. It can't just stop when they're 16 or 17-year-olds, because they're now 33, 34, 40, and we're having these conversations. Almost 40.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
We connect with.
We've got Musau. Musau, if you want to jump in, but this question is in regards to if you connect with other school districts besides BPS.
Thank you so much for that question, Musau Dibinga. I appreciate you so much, Executive Director. So yes, we work with Boston Public Schools, Lincoln, Needham, Weston, Newton. We work with every school and community that wants to work with us. And when we have our production of Our Story or Taputa, young people come from all walks of life to come to our productions. And I mean all walks of life. And at one of our Story productions, which is our Black History production, a Jewish man came up to me. And I was like, oh, He's going to talk about the lynching scene. What's he going to say? He said that what you just presented is not just for Black people, it's for everybody. And I thank you for bringing this to Needham. And I was floored because I wasn't sure where he was going, right? And so it's for everybody. And I treat every child that I work with the exact same. Doesn't matter what you look like. They all get the love. So I love the fact that we are in a lot of different school districts, and I welcome more districts in Boston and outside of Massachusetts. Thank you, Musal.
Shaumba, I have a question around, the leadership of yourself, artistic leadership, and the executive leadership of your dear sister, Musal, is tremendous. And how do you think about, the secession, sort of what's next? I know it's hard to think about, but because so much funding goes to support leadership, they believe in leadership, right? And so how do you think about what's coming next? Not that it's tomorrow or even 10 years down the road, but so that we can be ensured that, originations will be around for my grandchildren's grandchildren, How do you think about that?
I've been thinking about it even more over the last maybe 2 years. Someone asked us, can you write a book about how you run Origination? No, we can't write a book, but we can, give guidelines. There are 2 people that I've been looking at that have jumped in, and when I am thinking about something, they already do it. They're really, really great at having conversations with parents and guardians, really, really great at having conversations and helping young people. They're just amazing. And so it's now an opportunity for me to, and my executive director, to find out what they're looking at doing as their life unfolds. This is going to stick around for a very long time. We're going to be like Alien. I'm like Judith Jameson. I'm going to pass it on and we're going to keep it moving. It is not going anywhere. So I want to be clear with everyone that we are going to be here forever. But we're thinking about that. We're working on it. We're looking at people and trying to make sure we have those conversations with people that can help us make sure we leave it the way it needs to be left.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm not surprised that you're already thinking about it, because that's what smart leaders and smart organizations do. And I know we're going to turn over our time back over to Tanya to wrap us up, but I just want to say a huge thank you to you and to your family for the sacrifice and for the privilege and for the beautiful organization that you've created and the lives that you've touched. I know I always feel better after conversation with you and hearing of the work that you're doing, and I encourage you to just keep going, and just thank you for all that you're doing and all that you will do. And it's always good to be in conversation with you, and so thank you. And with that, we're going to turn it back over to Tanya.
Yeah, thank you so much. I echo everything David said, and I really appreciate today's conversation. It's really just a bright light in the day. Thank you for all of the richness and energy and passion that you bring to your work and to this conversation today. So truly appreciate you being here, and for everyone joining us today. If you want to learn more, it seems like there are more questions coming in. So if you want to continue conversations with folks from OrigiNation, feel free to reach out to Shaumba and her team and have a virtual coffee or tea. We'll be sharing their information. Check out their website and the video that was shared, and again, we'll include that in the follow-up email, so you'll have access to that too. So thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, I have a minute left. The hour flew by as we expected in this really lovely conversation. So, thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you to the Jacket Foundation. Thank you to our team, and we really hope to be back on Zoom and in-person venues as well for more arts in our lives. So I really appreciate everyone being here, and have a lovely day.
Bye now.
Thank you, everyone. Hey, it's awesome.
Thank you everyone so much. Great day and many thanks to our speakers. Have a great afternoon.